Hey, what's up, everybody? John Hiley here with the Tactical Dent Tech Podcast, bringing you another interview today from my man. Call the Damn Leads, Drewbie Wilson. Welcome, Drewbie, to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, John. Excited to be here, man. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it as well, brother. I've known Drewbie for a long time, and he is literally one of the best sales follow-up guys that I know. And I feel like that is one of the things inside of the paintless dent removal automotive industry in general that is absolutely lacking, and a lot of it, Drewbie, is the question, how many times should we follow up? There are a lot of times I feel like there's ups and downs in the industry, and we got a lot of guys who their business really fluctuates, meaning that, there's a season when there's so much business coming in, get a hail damage storm or something like that, or if it's in the summertime, and then there'll be a season like the wintertime or the slow season where you don't get as much business. And I feel like you have a more opportunity to do personal follow up during that time. So I just wanted to bring you on here and get your opinion, when it comes from a sales perspective with the guys out there. Like, what type of follow up should we be doing inside of this industry? How many times? At what point are you, bothering them maybe a little too much or not enough? There's that fine line in a follow up sequence. And I thought, what better man to answer these questions than you? So I'm going to go ahead and give you the stage, and you don't have to answer the questions in any order I gave them to you. You just pick what you want to go with, and let's roll with it, brother.
Well, I appreciate that, and you set the bar hard for me, John. So, I would say the biggest thing and most important question to ask in any industry, but PDR especially, is like, how often do cars get dings in them? Because you and I both know that it's not just a hailstorm that causes a ding in a car. It could be a kid's bicycle handle, it could be some jerk with their grocery cart. Like, dings in cars and dents, this is not a one and done type situation. It is always occurring. Now, does it occur always to every person that we work with? No, it might be once in a couple of years that we have some bad luck and we get hit with a storm, or, somebody dings our car, but it doesn't change the fact that cars are always at risk of having a ding or a dent. And so when I think about someone in the PDR industry, as far as how often should I follow up, what is the right cadence, that is kind of a loaded question, John, because honestly, when you think about sales, there's a few different stages that your prospective clients are going to go through. They have that initial kind of research phase where if they don't have an immediate need, maybe they're kind of like, hey, I've got this small little dent that I don't like, but I'm not like really freaking out about. Maybe I want to look into it and see what that process looks like. So maybe they're doing research and discovery. Maybe they get to a point where they say, hey, I've got to turn this car in. This is a lease, and I don't want them to, take away or charge me a bunch extra. Maybe I want to go and get an estimate to see what it's going to cost to be fixed before I turn it in, because that's a whole different conversation. So now there's intent behind the conversation and the research. So someone who's just trying to get educated on it, you might only reach out to maybe once a week or a couple of times in a month. But someone who's made the request to say, hey, I need to get an actual number or a quote on what this is going to cost, that's someone who has intent that you probably want to touch up with, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 times in that first 30 days after they've made their initial request. And then, extending beyond that, you and I both know, John, I think the statistic is out of 100 people, only 5 of them are likely to buy from you right now. If there's no immediate need, let's say, right? Let's say it's a cold audience. That means 95 of those people that you spoke to, they may still need your product or service in the next 12 months. So the guys who are super successful that you and I know and have chatted with, they never stop following up, but they change the type of follow up depending on the stage that the client is in, whether they're still in the research and development, they're in the, hey, high intent needs to solve the problem stage, or they're in that, I'm still trying to decide if this is the right decision for me, which could be, Was it a price objection? Was it a timing objection? Or, they had to speak to a spouse or a business partner type thing? Because those are the three most common objections in any industry. So the follow-up needs to be adjusted depending on where are they at in the process, because each of those stages has a different probability to turn into a closed deal.
Okay, cool. A lot of this is people who have an immediate need. Like I have very rarely received a phone call in the automotive industry, and specifically paintless dent removal, of course, of an individual who was just researching it to see if it was something to fix a future problem. I would
Sure.
say probably maybe less than 5% of individuals, or even maybe like 1%, would actually be
Okay.
doing that. So, what we tend to get a lot of phone calls for are individuals who have that urgent need. And I think the scenario that we run into, this would be a interesting scenario to get your take on, is that we have individuals who are calling. Maybe they are price shopping. They do not know the difference between a quality repair and unquality. There's shops out there who just do volume, and they're not necessarily the high quality shops. And then we got places that really take care of your car. And there are two different types of buyers, right? There are individuals who really care about their car and they want a job well done. And there are individuals who just want money back, or they want some sort of incentive, right? And so I think a lot of our audience are the latter, right? So they are the individuals who really do want to take care of their car. But yet when they call us, they read our websites, they read the competitors' websites. A lot of it's saying the same things. So I kind of feel like a strategy of following up would be key to show what type of customer service that we provide, and not only that, that we'll actually follow up and keep them informed about the repair process, right? So if you have an individual calling in about a hail damaged car, they like everything you hear, but they say, hey, I got to go talk to my wife, or I got to go talk to my husband. At that point, how often do you think we should follow up when a big job, like a $10,000 job, is on the line?
Well, I love that. And I appreciate you being very like clarifying your industry, because every industry is a little bit different. That's what I
Yep.
love about sales, is that there's always these little nuances. And so we know from this conversation that they're a high intent individual. So if we're a high intent individual, and I know that this specific industry typically has, let's just use a triangle type situation. They want quality service, they want the best price, and they want it done in a certain time frame, right? We've all seen that silly meme where it's like
Pick one.
cheap, fast, good, right? And it's like you get 2 out of 3. That's It's funny because it's a cliche and it's true. At the end of the day, as a business owner, you get to decide, are you focusing on a higher quality, a better service? Well, if that's the case, you can't be the lowest cost in the market. It just doesn't work out in the big picture. If you want to be the lowest cost in the market, well, then you're going to sacrifice on quality. You're going to sacrifice on time because, hey, yeah, we're the lowest, but you've got 100 people in front of you because everybody wants the lowest. And so you know that now there's 100 cars just being banged out. Is that the kind of service that you're looking for? Or would you prefer, customer, this is your choice, not mine, that we came out, picked up the vehicle, brought it to our shop, made sure that it was 100% repaired back to maybe even better than what it looked like before? I could be crazy, but just hear me out. And then dropped it back off to you at home or at work so that you didn't miss any days of work. You didn't have to run around and try to keep up with us and know what was going on. Would it be worth it to you to know that that was all well and taken care of? Because
Yes.
you can pre-handle that objection before you even get to it being an objection by asking the right questions. Hey, what's important to you in this process? Because if you just want the lowest cost, I'm just going to be upfront. I'm not that guy. I can tell you what our lowest investment would be to do the repair, but I'm also not going to just race to the bottom, because that's not how we operate as a standard in our business. And I would imagine that's not the standard that you're looking for either. So we could really we could nerd out on this all day, John, but I want to go back to your original spouse objection, business partner, decision maker type situation. This is one that I really love. And I actually just filmed a training for my own clients about this. So this is fresh on the tongue. It is important to understand during those questions, the pre-qualifying process. Hey, if we can come to an understanding of what you need and we know that we for sure have the service to get this done for you, are you in a position to make a decision today? Yes. Wonderful. Then you've basically told me when you bring up the spouse that you already have the authority to make this decision. So instead of me trying to hound on you and be like, oh, well, you got to ask your spouse permission. No, no, no. Hey, I also like to make important decisions. And I, if my spouse needs to be involved, I totally understand. So my question is, earlier on when you said that you had the authority to make this decision, did you actually talk to your spouse or partner before you came in to have this conversation? Are they aware that this is going on? Yes. Wonderful. Since I'm the expert and you're not, I don't expect you to be able to take all of this back to them and give it the same way that I did. So let me ask you this, sir. Which part of this do you think is going to be most important for them to understand? What do they need to see, hear, feel about it in order to know that it's the right decision for your family, for your business? Because now we're isolating the objection, and typically that spouse objection, it's really a smokescreen because they haven't wanted to make a decision and they're using someone else as a deflection tool. So isolating it down to specifically what is the thing that they need to know, hear, or feel in order to be confident that this is the right decision. It's often the individual you're speaking to who needs those things more than the spouse.
Yeah, that's really good, man. That is really good. And that is a common objection that you're going to hear. And usually it's so they can kind of get off the phone and think through the conversation without making a particular decision right now, you know? And
Yep.
we've all had to deal with that. I think that even goes into the door knocking world, right? Where you've got people out there knocking doors, speaking to one spouse at a time. One of the things that was very interesting early on that I learned that if you can also suggest to get on to a conversation with both you and the spouse, right? So, well, I would love to be a part of that. So that way I could answer any questions that they might need. And one of the great things about that, you could reschedule your next call where perhaps the spouse is nearby and can jump on the call. Um, a lot of this.
Yeah, I didn't touch, like, I didn't lean in on that, but that's another great way to handle objections is that and I learned this from another friend of mine. They call it the BAM fam. It's like book a meeting from a meeting. Hey man, I totally understand if we aren't in a position to make the decision right now, here's the action items and the steps to take. But what we need to do is get the next meeting on the calendar so that we have a solid point of decision making, because the longer we wait, the worse it's likely going to be. And I don't want that for you. So let's just go ahead and set a time right now that we know you'll have been able to make the right decision and then get it on the calendar.
Right. And a lot of what we find ourselves dealing with is like a storefront situation where we've got an individual walking in and they need a particular estimate on a vehicle. We give them that said estimate. And then there's that situation where you've either got to book them for the repair or they drive off with the estimate. Now, I'm a big fan of immediately booking them. And usually I'll let them know that we've only got a few spots available over the next week or two. And we'd like to go ahead and, check the calendar, check their schedule, and immediately ask to go ahead and book that repair. What type of suggestions would you give us on a situation like this where an individual says that they've got to go home and check their calendar or they'll call back? How would you handle trying to book them now or following up with them in the future to get them booked in?
Yeah, I'm not a super high pressure individual. So ultimately, anytime I'm handling objections like this, my goal is to really try to just play into what's best for the client. And sometimes that is reframing certain perspectives or ideas on time value and, really making decisions fast. So let's just say, hey, I've got your estimate. I got to go home, speak to my wife. Yeah, I totally understand. Definitely makes sense making sure that your wife is on board and that we, aren't taking the vehicle out of commission when you're going to need it. So like if you were looking at your calendar right now, typically what days do you think would work best for you and your wife? That way, I'm not trying to get them to commit to anything specific. I'm just simply trying to weed out like, hey, is it a Thursday? All right, Thursdays are typically, pretty tight. It just so happens though I've got a Thursday at 3 p.m. this week. So like if you want to take action, you could like, give her a call real quick and just see if it makes sense. And then we could lock it in and have it done by, Friday, bring it out to you, whatever the case may be. I don't, that's going to be nuanced depending on the situation, but just leaning in on, hey, I totally respect that you want to make the right choice for you and your family. How can I make sure that I'm giving you everything you need in order to do that? Is it specific days, certain times of the, morning, afternoon, whatever? I want to be as flexible as possible. And also, John, I love how you use the marketers call it the FOMO, the fear of missing out, because, hey, if time is important to you and getting this done is important to you, let's not delay it any longer than necessary. What days typically work best for you and your spouse? Just so I can make a note so that if we don't schedule something right now, then, hey, I can make a note to call you this afternoon at 5 p.m. How's that sound? Book a meeting from a meeting. When am I going to follow up with you? Because this is, I think, really important in that, let's say they do realistically want to go home and have a conversation with their spouse, and there's no amount of arguing with this individual that's going to do you any good because you're trying to win their business, not make them upset. So they go home, they're really interested in your product or service, but then all of a sudden they get squirreled off. They're watching TV, they get a call from work, this, that, whatever. If I told you, hey, John, I know you're going to go home, you're going to speak to your spouse at dinner tonight, you're going to make sure that this is the right move. I'm going to call you around 8 p.m. just so that we can finalize that appointment time. You know what I need to do at 8 p.m., John? I need to call you and say, hey, this is John. I'm booking your call. What day did you and your wife decide that you want to have this thing come in? Because that is a level of trust and authority, because most people don't realize that when you tell someone you're going to do something, even as small as, hey, I'm going to follow up with you, and then you don't do it, there's an unconscious level of trust that is lost there because you said you were going to do something and you didn't
Right.
do it.
Right. And I think one of the things that we need to put out there for anybody who's listening to this is one of the things that I've done for years is you've got to ask right from the beginning. If somebody walks into your facility or they give you a phone call, you've got to ask immediately, so how did you hear about me? Because that answer is going to really dictate the follow-up sequence thereafter. For an example, if somebody says to me, they come by our shop and they say, well, my grandfather had his car fixed here, so he referred me to come here. I already know that's a slam dunk. I don't have to tell them about how many reviews we have. I don't have to tell them about our satisfaction guaranteed policy. I mean, I can really gloss over these kind of things because Grandpa sent them here. They trust their grandfather. Let's go over and let's get you scheduled in to get your car dropped off. Now, if they just said to me, well, hey, I was driving by, I've seen your facility over and over again, and I just happened to get this hail damage on my car, then that's a totally different dance because all they've told me that they know about me is that they've seen me over and over again. So the know, like, and trust factor hasn't been built. Okay. So, any type of engagement with individuals, you always got to figure out, how did they hear about you? Or, for example, if you got all the Google reviews and they say, well, I read all your Google reviews, you're pretty close to a slam dunk right there because they came in because of their already the ability to know, like, and trust you through them Google reviews has been critically important for them, right? And one of
I
the things
think
that
too,
I'm
and
doing, Drewbie, I got a question real quick. I know I'm gonna let you go,
yeah,
but
go ahead.
one thing I'm doing here, Drewbie, is that I'm actually going to leverage my YouTube channel because I got 10,000 plus followers on YouTube. We don't have so many Google reviews because, as I told you before we jumped on here, we just got our Google built a couple weeks ago, right? So I'm just now starting to get Google reviews here. So I don't have that to leverage on. I've got to leverage the YouTube channel whenever they come in. Have you ever seen anybody that done all the repairs and was very transparent and can show you how it's done? Some of the worst repairs that are recorded, right? I probably shouldn't say that nowadays. We got these people from overseas that can't get panels that are just absolute savages at, crinkled up metal and things like that. So anyhow, I'll let you go from there.
No, I love that, and I think you're right. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying. The process, the stages of which they are going through. So to me, if someone said, "Hey, I've been driving by and I want to stop in and check you out," that's research and education. Still, that is not necessarily high intent.
Mm,
That is, "Hey, I'm still trying to like you, and I haven't decided if I trust you enough." Trust is, hey, my grandpa sent me over here. He said you're the guy to fix my door. What do I need to do next? That is high intent. That is a level of trust. So, which is why, to me, I think having a script that you use every single time, no matter what the prospect came from, I think that's the key. And the best professionals, they know how to alter that script depending upon the responses they're getting as they're going through it. And so part of that is, hey, what 4 to 5 questions do you know you need to ask every single person you speak with in order to know that you're the right fit for the job and that you can provide what they're expecting? And part of that, as you said, is, hey, what made you decide to stop by? How did you hear about us? What's important to you about getting this repair done? Would you like to get this done in a certain time frame? Is there certain logistical issues that are a concern to you as far as dropping the vehicle off, having it returned, certain times of day that you would do better with? Do you care what it looks like when it's done? Like, these are all questions that you're probably asking every single time in number of different ways. But if you can just create a bulleted list of, hey, I know if I ask these 4 to 5 different questions, no matter how I ask them, and as long as I get those data points, I'm able to go in and have a better opportunity to close. Well, guess what? Your rates are going to go up. You're going to make more money and you're going to have more consistency in your business all year long, not just during the rush, because you're going to actually be able to build that rapport, get them to know you, get them to like your business. And those questions that you're asking are truly the trust building process, because as you're asking, you're going to shut up and you're going to listen to what they're telling you. And they're going to tell you everything that's important to them. And if you listen well, all you got to do is just lay out the steps of how to get the thing that they want. Fantastic. Sounds like if we can make sure this is done quickly at a cost that makes sense to you and that it looks great enough to pass the repair test when you turn in the lease next month, then all is good and well. It's going to cost $10,000. We can get you booked in on the 13th at 5 p.m. Sign here. Boom. That's it. But the problem is most people are trying to wing it every single time. So they're not getting every data point. And every one of those data points is what allows you to truly know, am I solving the biggest problem for this person? Because often there's a lot of problems going on in their life. But the thing that's keeping them up at night, that's the thing that you want to solve. And maybe the dent isn't the issue. The issue is the fact that they're staying up at night concerned that the lease turn in is going to go crazy and they're going to have to pay a ton of money. But you can get it fixed. You might also happen to have the process to have the insurance cover it for them, which takes a whole lot of weight off of their shoulder. And now all of a sudden, you're the guy. And there's no one else that they would ever work with because you solved their biggest problem. And you know what you do after that, John? You ask them for a referral. Who else do you know that has this problem that I can help solve it for them? And that's a whole other conversation we could have, because how many
love
people
that,
don't
man.
ask for referrals?
I love that. I actually try to get a video review from every client. I've got, obviously my shop is like a studio, so I can roll out the video camera. I've got the mic set up And I will ask every client. Some of them will say yes, some of them will say no. I always ask them if they're comfortable with it first. I don't want to put
Mhm.
anybody in an uncomfortable situation. People do say the weirdest thing though when they get on video for the first time, like they almost break down. Like it's or some people are naturals, and then other people just they say the weirdest thing. Like one time, this lady, she just kept talking about the scratches that we fixed, and we fixed dents, and she's just like going on about all the scratches that we fixed on her car. She just blanked, when the camera was on her. So what I love, I want to recap what you said here because I love this. And when you were telling me the research and intent phase, that is definitely a clarifying that an individual who is stopping in because they've seen your location time after time, and now they're looking to educate themselves further to know, like, and trust you. So we should have some preloaded questions, and also I would say some preloaded market positioning for that moment, right? To let them know, why are you the individual that they could know, like, and trust, and how can you say this in a way that is framed very humble, not as if you are bragging about yourself or your services,
Yep.
but say it in such a way that's very nice. I'm very good at that, of letting people know that we are the right company for them in such a very, very nice way. You always got to look at that. So that's one thing that I think we're going to work on in the Tactical Dent Tech group, is getting a list of things that maybe scripts that we need to have ready. And then the second thing is an individual who I believe there's the high intent, the person that was referred from grandpa, right? Or from a neighbor or somebody very trusting, their mother, their wife, their husband, whatever. Well, you've got that individual, much easier to schedule. You don't have to have as many questions. And then you've got the one in the middle that's choosing between you and other people. So
Mhm.
you've got to distinguish, maybe they stopped at a few places. You've got to make sure to distinguish, or let's just say, set yourself apart from the other company that they're thinking about. In that situation, Drewbie, I'll tell you what I would normally do, but in that situation, how do you separate yourself or set yourself apart from the competition?
I love this question. I'm so glad that you brought it up because I'm going to be curious of your take on how you handle it. But I often go through this with like real estate clients and insurance clients that I train and work with their team because that's something that gets shopped around a little bit. Some people, they just like to shop. So there's a couple ways that you can go about this. They're a little nuanced, so pay attention. The first way, and this is something that you can have in your pre-qualifying question process of simply saying, how long have you been thinking about getting this fixed? Because then if they've been thinking about it a while, it's like, all right, well, have you looked into having anyone else do the job before, or have you checked into this at all? Because now you can ask in a subtle way of, hey, have you been shopping around? Are you seeing other people to figure out what this looks like? Or is this something where you literally just noticed and decided, I should probably get this fixed? Because I'm not trying to encourage them to shop around. I'm just trying to understand what their buying process looks like. And this is the second part of the nuance to this is, as you're getting to and you're making getting ready to make the offer, you can ask someone and kind of elicit their buying process. It's like, hey, the last time that you had to have a car repair made, what process did you go through? Like, did you just pick someone and go there? Did you shop around it? Like, how did you go about picking your service provider the last time you needed one? And they're going to tell you, well, I like to get rates from two or three different people, and I like to look at the Google reviews and all those things. I totally understand. Those are all important to me too. Let me explain to you how we do our process and how we, go through the value of what you're going to receive here. And while I'm doing that, why don't you scroll through your phone and pull up our Google reviews? You're going to see that we have several hundred. Now, we're not a total 5-star, and I don't think anyone who's a total 5-star really makes sense because we've all had a customer or two that got a little upset. But if you want, go look at the bad reviews and see when they came back and said how much happier they were after we fixed the problem that they thought was a problem. Because typically, when I'm looking at the reviews, I want to see what the bad stuff was so I can see how the person handled it. Because at the end of the day, my job, Mr. Smith, Mrs. Johnson, is simply to make sure that you have the absolute best experience as possible and to know that when you leave here, you're so happy, you want to tell 5 of your friends about it because that's the greatest compliment I can receive. Does that sound fair?
It's good. Yeah, that's good. So no, that's a much lengthier than mine, right? So essentially what I do is I simply ask them, I say, well, what caused you to continue shopping? And so then I get them to unleash on me whatever common objections they have for the other company or the competitor.
Yep.
So that gives me the ability to begin to jump into a dialogue on how we can solve them, or we can't, right? Or hey, so maybe we can or we can't, right? And another thing I will occasionally do is do something called plant the seed of doubt, because that competitor could be an auto body shop down the road. And what I would do is I would pull out on my phone, or I used to have a picture up on my wall of a brand new Audi that was at a body shop that was completely grinded down and just had Bondo in it. It had dust all over it. And I would never tell them what body shop it was, right? Because I would just want them to imagine that it might be the one that they're going to take their car to. And I will say, hey, we had a client that came in with this brand new Audi. I mean, I'd let them know that I'm a car guy. And so, I love cars and I'm a lot like you, and I love my car. And so this customer chose a different body shop. I let them know I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. I'm not going to tell you what shop it is, but these are the pictures that they ended up sending me, and they were upset that I didn't like tell them that this could potentially happen to them. And so, and I always looked at it like I don't want to really talk bad about any competitors, but I do want to warn you that when you take it to an auto body shop that sprays panels, they're always going to go with the lowest price. They're always going to pick the route that the insurance company like forces them to. Us, we don't even do this process. We will never paint your car. Your car will not look like that. And then I let them know, I'm like, you know what Bondo is? That's like plastic put in your car. They sand down. I'm like, when it gets heated up, it sinks in. Your dents might come back. And like, I would, and it's true. Like all of it's true. So I would give them the truth of the risks of not going with a company like mine and not working with a company like ours. And then I would ensure them that this will never happen to your car when it's under my care. And
I
so
love that.
that's a mixture of asking them why they kept shopping and then planting what I call the seed of doubt. Because that picture that I still have, it's in my phone. I got probably need to frame it up here now. But that picture was done at a very the biggest body shop operation in the state of Ohio. And it actually it got sent to me from a customer who wishes that they would have stayed on track and continued with us. So it really makes for, but I encourage you guys that you should at least framework something to show people what could happen to their car if they decide to go the insurance route or where the insurance company sends them, and assure them, the client, that this is not going to happen to you. Oh, and to boot, they had the car for 2 months. We're going to have it in and out of here in 2 weeks, depending on how quick your insurance company gets back with me.
And I this is what I love about, an expert like you, John, and why anyone who's in the PDR industry, if they're not getting coached and mentored by someone, like they should probably call you and check out your group, because these are the little nuances that only someone who's had thousands and thousands and thousands of conversations
That's
starts
it.
to recognize. There's no secret sauce. There's no one script that works perfectly every single time. It is the framework and the foundation from which we build out and we get creative. And that's one of the things that PDR techs are so great at. They can see the little things, those little creases, those dents. You guys are special. And so, what I would encourage you to think about is the same way that you look at the lines on the car, look at the lines in your sales script. Are they smooth? Do they transition well? Or is it a clunky block where you're like, this looks awful and it makes zero sense why it's doing that? It's so fun when you really get into the beauty and the creativity of your sales frameworks, because it's just the same as removing the dents and watching those beautiful lines on the car. And what John mentioned, as the value of the car goes up, your attention to that detail becomes more important. And so as you're starting to ask for higher amounts of money, that's more than your competition, your attention to details like that is going to be what separates you from every other goofball on the street that's got a slap magnet on the side of their car saying that they can fix, your dents. That is the difference. You guys are professionals and you understand that there are little things that make all the difference. So look at your script the same way that you'd look at the lines in a car.
Well, I appreciate that, brother. And I think that's something that we'll definitely be talking about in some of the future Tactical Dent Tech masterminds. We do have a free mastermind in the Tactical Dent Tech group. And many of you technicians out there that took some advice from this podcast and began working your script, you're free to jump in on that mastermind and ask questions. And never know, we might be able to twist Drewbie's arm one day and get him over there in one of our masterminds. So anyhow, Drewbie, I appreciate having you along on today's Tactical Dent Tech podcast. Where could anybody reach out and get some additional information from you?
Yeah, John, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and run my mouth a little bit. This is one of those things that it's truly an honor for me to get to pour some wisdom into your community and to help someone that they're investing their most valuable asset with us today, their time. We all know how to make money. Time, energy, and effort are the only things you cannot get back. So if you spend a little bit with us today, I'm truly humbled and grateful. And here's what I would ask. If you want to know more about us, share this episode on social media of your choice, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you hang out. Share it with somebody. Let them know that you listened, that you spent a little bit of your time and you got some value out of it. And when you do that share, tag at Call the Damn Leads. That's going to tell me that you're an action taker, that you got some value out of this, and it's going to do me and John a favor of helping us get in front of more people that we can help, because that's why we do this. We love to help people. So if you share this, tag at Call the Damn Leads. I'm going to just be honest with you. I'm pretty good at marketing. So after that, you're going to see me everywhere henceforth. But I look forward to seeing those of you that take action, that implement these strategies, and absolutely dominate going into the new year.
I appreciate that, Drewbie, and definitely share and tag. And I appreciate you guys for coming along on this episode of the Tactical Dent Tech Podcast. And as usual, I'll see you on the next one.